was driving my truck along a lonely road in Alaska. The night was cold and dark, and my only company was the sound of the wind and the soft purr of the engine. Julian Hernandez, that was my name. A trucker used to long trips in the solitude of the highways. Suddenly, without warning, my truck began to shake and lose power, as if something had invaded its guts and paralyzed it. I frantically tried to stop it, but the machinery refused to respond. I cursed my bad luck as I watched smoke drift from the hood. I was stranded in the middle of nowhere, about 60 kilometers from the nearest town. I knew I would have to walk to the next village to look for help, but the cold chilled me to the bone, and the idea of leaving my truck behind didn't sit well with me. So I decided to stay inside, wrapped in my blankets, waiting patiently for morning. Time passed slowly while I remained trapped in that truck in the middle of the darkness. The silence grew unsettling, and my imagination began to play tricks on me. I heard strange creaks and distant whispers, but I couldn't figure out where they were coming from. Suddenly, a shiver ran through my entire body. Something was moving outside. My heart started pounding, and my mind filled with dark thoughts. Slowly, I opened the curtain on the window and looked out, and that's when I saw it. A tall, dark figure stood out against the snow. Its eyes shone with a strange glow, and its shape was indescribable. It seemed humanoid, but its size and appearance were monstrous. The creature moved with supernatural agility, as if it were floating over the snow. My heart stopped for an instant. What was that? A giant bear? A mutated man? I didn't know, but I felt a deep, primal fear. The creature was slowly approaching my truck, and its very presence filled the air with unbearable pressure. I quickly shut the curtain and started looking for anything I could use to defend myself. I found a wrench and a hammer and gripped them tightly in my sweaty hands. The sound of the creature's heavy breathing grew louder, and I felt my pulse race. Suddenly, a thunderous blow rang out on my truck's door. I jumped in fright and stumbled back toward the rear of the cab. The creature was trying to get in. Its icy breath seeped through the edges of the door, and its powerful pounding echoed in my ears. Panic took hold of me. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped in my own metal and glass cage. Desperate, I searched for my cell phone but realized there was no signal in that remote place. A knot formed in my stomach. The feeling of helplessness washed over me. The creature kept slamming the door, each time with more force. Every impact rang in my ears like a reminder of my vulnerability. I knew the truck wouldn't withstand it much longer, so I made a desperate decision. I looked toward the driver's seat and spotted a fire extinguisher. I grabbed it and held it like it was my only hope. My mind filled with images of the worst possible scenarios. But I knew I couldn't give up. I had to fight for my life. With all my strength, I braced myself to open the door. My hands trembled and my breathing turned ragged. The creature continued hammering away. Its fury was relentless. I couldn't allow fear to paralyze me. I took a breath, yanked the door open, and came face to face with the creature. My heart froze. Its yellow eyes blazed intensely, full of an indescribable ferocity. The beast's freezing breath struck my face, and a chill ran through me. Without thinking twice, I started hitting it with the extinguisher, blow after blow. Adrenaline flooded me, but the creature seemed immune to my attacks. Its sharp claws lunged at me, tearing my clothes and leaving deep gashes in my skin. The fight was clearly uneven, but I wasn't going to give up. I used every ounce of strength I had left to keep fighting until I managed to land a solid hit on its head. The creature staggered back for a moment. Taking advantage of that brief opening, I ran out into the snow, trying to get as far away as possible from that living nightmare. I felt the stabbing pain of my wounds and the exhaustion in my body from the struggle, but I didn't stop. I kept running without looking back. After several kilometers, I reached the nearest town. I sought medical help, and told them about my terrifying encounter with the creature. But people were skeptical and chalked my experience up to imagination or exhaustion. The Bigfoot-like creature remains etched in my memory as a constant reminder that in the darkest corners of our world, horrors we can't imagine may exist. And even if many don't believe my story, deep down I know what I lived through that night was real, and I learned to trust my instincts and value every moment of safety I have. As time went by, I researched more about the legendary creatures said to inhabit Alaska's remote places. I found accounts of other encounters with Bigfoot, stories that resonated with my own experience. I realized I wasn't alone in this struggle against the unknown. I decided to share my story with those willing to listen. I wrote a detailed account of my encounter and posted it on online forums dedicated to the paranormal and the supernatural, especially on this channel, Carretera de la Oscuridad. To my surprise, I received replies from people who had lived through similar experiences or who knew other witnesses. And that was my whole story. My name is Pedro Jimenez, and I'm an experienced trucker. I've traveled countless roads, crossing borders, and facing all kinds of challenges in my career. However, nothing had prepared me for what I was about to experience that fateful night in a lonely forest in Brazil. I had been driving for several days without rest, delivering loads in different cities and trying to meet tight deadlines. The fatigue was taking its toll, but I resisted stopping. I wanted to reach my destination as quickly as possible and rest after that long trip. But my body couldn't take it anymore, and I had to make a decision. I spotted a forest on the horizon and decided it would be the perfect place to rest. I parked my truck by the roadside right at the edge of the forest and prepared to sleep for a couple of hours. As I settled in, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The air was charged with a strange tension, and the silence was overwhelming. I wondered if stopping there had been a good idea, but I was too tired to worry. I lay down on the bunk in my truck and tried to fall asleep, but just as I was about to drift off, I heard a sound coming from the woods, a crackle of branches and dry leaves. I sat up and looked out the window. The darkness was impenetrable. I couldn't see anything. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination playing a trick on me. But then I heard it again, louder and closer. My senses sharpened as I tried to figure out exactly what was out there. My heart pounded as I climbed out of my truck and ventured into the forest. My only light was the faint moonlight filtering through the treetops. I moved cautiously, trying not to make noise. That's when I saw it, a tall, dark figure weaving between the trees. My eyes went wide and my breath caught. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like a giant shadow with a vaguely human form, but much bigger. Terror took hold of me. My whole body trembled as I watched the creature slowly approach. Every step it took echoed through the forest, filling the air with tension. I didn't know what to do or how to confront it. Fear simply paralyzed me, but I knew I had to act. Without thinking twice, I turned around and started running back to my truck. I could hear the creature's heavy footsteps behind me, getting closer and closer. I felt its breath on the back of my neck, but I didn't dare look back. I reached the truck and climbed in quickly, slammed the door, and started the engine, adrenaline coursing through my body. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the creature standing at the edge of the forest, watching me with bright, menacing eyes. I hit the accelerator and shot out of there, leaving the forest and the creature behind in the darkness. My heart was still pounding a mile a minute as I drove as fast as I could. I couldn't believe what I had witnessed, and I was grateful to have escaped alive. As I put distance between me and the woods, my mind began to process what had happened. What was that creature? Bigfoot, some unknown being that inhabits those remote places? I didn't know, but I was certain of one thing. I had experienced a terrifying, supernatural encounter. The rest of the trip passed in a constant state of alertness. Every sudden noise, every fleeting shadow on the road brought the forest back to mind. My head filled with unanswerable questions, and my imagination overflowed with possible explanations. I reached my destination and delivered the cargo. It took some time to rest and recover from the shock I'd been through. But even though I tried to forget that encounter, the image of the creature kept haunting me, in my dreams and in my waking mind. After that experience, I decided to take a long break from the road. I needed time to reflect and process what had happened. Further research revealed that mine wasn't the first reported encounter with a similar creature in that region of Brazil. That only increased my intrigue and fascination with the unknown. These days, I've become a storyteller of that night in the forest. I know many skeptics won't believe me, but there are those who, like me, have experienced the inexplicable and understand that there are hidden secrets in the darkest corners of our world. So if you ever find yourself on a long, exhausting trip, think twice before stopping near a lonely forest. You never know what creature might be lurking in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself and change your life forever. My name is Smith Williams, an experienced trucker from Canada. I've faced many dangerous situations on the lonely roads of this vast country, but nothing had prepared me for the terrifying encounter I lived through on a dark night while driving down a remote highway. It was a cold, rainy night, and I was covering a little-traveled route in the middle of nowhere. The lights of my truck reflected on the wet pavement, creating a gloomy, mysterious atmosphere. My only companion in the cab was the monotonous sound of the rain beating on the roof. Fatigue was starting to take its toll on me, but I knew I had to reach my destination. There were no signs of life around me, just trees and the blackness of night. My eyes struggled to stay open, but I knew that giving in to sleep would be deadly. In the middle of that fight to stay awake, I noticed a strange movement in my peripheral vision. A fleeting flash, something huge and dark moving among the trees. My heart raced, and a chilling foreboding filled my mind. Instinct pushed me to brake hard, making the truck skid on the wet pavement. My pulse was racing as I tried to understand what I had just seen. It couldn't be real. Not in Canada, I thought. But something told me I was wrong. I got out of the truck, trembling with nerves, and stepped into the forest not knowing what to expect. The rain fell relentlessly, adding tension to the atmosphere. My steps were slow and cautious, and every moving branch seemed to whisper a warning of imminent danger. Then I saw it. A huge, powerful figure emerged from between the trees. Bigfoot. Its eyes shone in the dark, reflecting a feral, animal ferocity. My body froze with fear, but I knew I couldn't allow myself to stand there motionless. I backed away quickly, but the creature lunged at me with astonishing speed. I stumbled and fell to the ground. As the monster closed in, I could feel its hot, humid breath on my face, and its deafening roar pierced my ears. Instinctively, I scrambled up and ran for my truck. My hands shook as I fumbled for the keys and struggled to open the door. The creature's thunderous noise pursued me. Its footsteps pounded in my ears like an infernal drum. Just as I managed to open the door and throw myself inside, the creature slammed into the vehicle with overwhelming force. The truck shook and rocked violently while my heart threatened to burst out of my chest. The windows squealed under the pressure of the impact, and the sound of twisting metal filled the air. Desperately, I started the engine and floored it, pulling away from that colossal monster. I felt the vehicle shudder as I fought to keep control amid the chaos. My mind was flooded with pure terror, but my will to survive drove me on. The rain battered the windshield, making it hard to see, but I didn't stop. I sped along, dodging trees and obstacles in the road, while the creature persisted in its frenzied pursuit. Fortunately, the truck was tough enough to withstand the creature's blow. Even so, the encounter left deep marks on my mind and my soul. I knew I was lucky to escape with my life, but the terror and uncertainty lingered within me. After a frantic stretch, I reached a more populated area. The glow of city lights gave me a moment's relief. I parked the truck on the side of the road and sat there, trying to calm down and process what I had just lived through. Since that encounter, I've avoided lonely roads at night. Nightmares took over my sleep, and paranoia accompanied me on every trip. Most importantly, I learned to respect the power and the existence of the unknown that lurks in the depths of our world. To this day, the story of my encounter with Bigfoot remains a guarded secret inside me. Some might dismiss it as madness or invention, but those who have faced similar situations know there are mysterious, terrifying forces that cannot be ignored. My life as a trucker changed forever. Now, every time I see dark forests through my windshield, I feel a mix of respect and fear, because I know that somewhere among the shadows another unknown creature could be lurking, waiting for the opportune moment to show itself and unleash terror once again.